Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Tell Me Yours, a storytelling podcast with me, your host, Trey Everett. Hello and welcome to another episode of Tell Me Yours. Today on the pod, I have an incredible musician, a really talented producer, and a brilliant songwriter. He is in the groups such as Rita Rita. He is going to be releasing a solo record this year, and he's also going to be featured on the latest album from the band Milk. Please welcome Eli Pafumi.
Could share, be a part of I don't know, just putting them in the hands of people who will give them extra life beyond it just being like, here's my songs and let's try to get them on playlists or whatever. Like I don't, whatever people do.
Yeah.
So yeah, just letting some of those songs kind of have the intention of belonging to everybody in that way, and like being able to be used in like placement would be an incredible reward of
naturally. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I think that's super cool though, and that's a reason that you're in LA. Like that is a reason to be in this particular city.
Totally. Just to get songs, in I think in the places that they deserve to be. And I think I'm really proud of these tunes, and I think they're both unique and personal, but also accessible and can be and I think there's songs on there for everybody.
It's cool.
And so it's I the way I've been saying it for a long time is like I made the Rita Rita record because I just had to. I was just like, I had nothing going on. I was trying to build my life from scratch. So much of that was just like I had this desperate calling to, like, part of the mania of making it the way I did was like, well, I can't do anything else. I don't know what to do with anything else right now. Even while teaching and playing and like all that kind of stuff, it was still coming out of this kind of like vacant space in me that I was trying to find the music and the art to fill that. Whereas this record, the solo record, I made because I could make it, and which I don't think is a bad thing. It was just like their space became available,
Cool.
Like COVID opened up and it was like, no, you're still here to write songs and to make music and to speak to your creative soul or whatever. But and that was the thing I think to stumble into and like give myself the permission to be like, no, like even though you're coming at it from a different place emotionally, and that even though it's a different time, it doesn't mean that it's any less valid to like write a full length.
100%. 100%.
And let it find its concept. I think it's a big thing. It's like one was like, this is what we're going for. This was one where it's just like, no, I'm just a writer and I'm a musician and I'm a songwriter, and like I'm just gonna let myself write songs. And it's was the first time there was like this backup of like a dozen plus songs of like, nope, these didn't make the cut. Like this is what spoke to me and these feelings and this like accurately, and I made it because I could, and because I had friends on my ass just being like, yo, when are we making this record? Like when are we finishing this? When are you gonna go in the studio? And it was good to have people holding my feet to the fire, be like,
I love that.
This is good, don't sleep on this. I know that this isn't Rita Rita, I know this is you just going back to Eli again, but like it still matters, and like people need to hear these songs.
I love that. I think that's so important, even just like as an artist, no matter the medium, to have that community to like really kind of push you. Have you ever read or heard of Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert?
I have not. No.
Elizabeth Gilbert is the author who wrote Eat, Pray, Love, that really popular book.
Yeah.
So she wrote a book called Big Magic, and it's basically just about inspiration and creativity. And she has this concept in the book that she talks about how like inspiration is a living, breathing, like divine presence.
Yeah.
And if it comes to you and presents an idea to you, you kind of have the choice to either take it and hold on to it and foster it and feed it and grow it and create it, or you say, hey, it's not for me right now, and inspiration will take that to someone else.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, this is such like a crazy, but like, I think it's such a brilliant concept, because there's so many times when you have an idea and you're like, man, I really love this idea. I just don't think I can really like give it the space or attention it needs right now. And then like time passes and you see someone else with that thing and you're like, oh man, that came to me first and I didn't have time for it. I just think it's like such a beautiful concept of like, hey, this isn't just something that like we can really necessarily control. It's just something that comes to us, and if we have the space for it, we can kind of give it the attention it deserves. And if not, then it should go to someone else who can do that, because the inspiration itself is valid.
Yeah, but like that was one of the biggest lessons I first got coming out here. And my uncle, my dad's brother, is a music producer here, and so much of like my first time in LA was just like hanging with him. Life lesson, like, you know, like after life lesson, like here's how pieces of the city work, just understanding it piece by piece. And I remember him saying, like, you know, the music doesn't belong to you. None of it belongs to you. You are simply like the vessel for it to pass through. Have you read The Artist's Way?
I have not. Chance?
Okay, so that's like that's such a pinnacle of me. And just
way.
The Artist's Way.
Yeah, I'm gonna get it,
though. No, it's like, I don't want to call it like, yeah, what is it? Julia Cameron. That's right.
Okay, cool.
And you know, this was something I've heard from so many artists, as well as, again, like my parents are artists. It was something that made a huge impact on my mom with her writing. And essentially, you know, it's not a self-help book necessarily, but it is a guided piece of like each chapter is a way of kind of helping you get back in touch with like that kind of the fuel, like that creative fuel in a way. And her two big, like, kind of like, you know, the pieces of the book, the biggest instruction are the morning pages, which is like kind of self-regimented, like every day when you wake up, you're kind of just doing this like brain dump so that you kind of clear space for both the good and the bad ideas later.
Yeah.
Or you find the good ideas in that, like, you know, post morning stupor of like, or like, I'm, you know, my coffee hasn't even hit yet, and so here's what my brain had before that. And then the other piece is artist dates, which is where she's like, you have to take yourself by yourself out on dates to go experience art that is outside of your medium. So like we, you know, as we spend so much time getting wrapped up in like our specific, you know, pursuit, and like maybe I'm just going, like as a musician, I've had moments where I'm like, oh, I'm just going to concert after concert every night, and that can be great. But there's something when it's just like, you know, the feeling of like, oh, well, I just went to an art museum, or just like let myself go walk the botanical gardens, or like I'm just going to go wander a library for a minute. And it's like, how can I go engage something that isn't necessarily like me just being a musician with headphones on, or me just like studying a band to be like, oh, that's you know, it's like, it's different when it's outside of, you know, like practice, and you're just pulling from that. And the biggest thing that she talks about is like you know, there is a religious element to it that she kind of allows you to like kind of give and take as you'd like to. Like she uses the language in a way that's like, if this resonates with you, use it. If not, like use this, you know. But her whole idea of like the creator, you know, and that you are the creator, and that is very on the nose in the sense of like the creator lives in you. And I was like, and it was like this mind blow of like, shit, like, oh my God.
Like, oh my God, it's so obvious.
It's so obvious. Like, what are you talking about? But just, you know, she's totally right of like, you know, we have to feed that creator. And kind of that art, like that artist child she talks so much about, like preserving that artist child, being in touch with that artist child and the things that it's asking for, even in our, you know, evolving and growing, you know, minds and bodies. But that like that creator is whatever that child within, you know, asking.
I love that
so
much.
It's made such a huge impact on me. I ask other artist friends, you know, it's like, it's such this like Bible for like, it's like such spiritual text at this point for artists, that I you know, I'll be shocked if you can go another year or two without at least hearing about it.
I love that. I love that so much. I could talk to you all day. Like, this is so nice just to like chat and like, and just hit topics. But
yeah,
the reason for the season, you are going to tell me a story.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Okay. So I kind of like, you know, I didn't know which avenue to go down.
Okay.
I'm going to do like one of those like audience participation things where it's like, what kind of song you guys want to hear? Which I sometimes love and hate.
Play Freebird!
Yeah. Exactly. No, here's Stairway again. So I have like 3 stories that I kind of was thinking into, that I'll let you.
Okay.
Like the title guide. So the first one is a play off of a Marcus Cito stage piece, who's a playwright and Broadway playwright in Broadway, and I'll say like how I didnof pay for college, is basically
okay. I like that.
And then the second kind of story is a story between Molly and I, is like this tour that led us to our past lives which is another
Oh.
interesting one. And then the third one, which is kind of the most nonsensical, and also, I was so like, I so badly want to tell it, but I'm also like, am I going to get in trouble for telling it? Is this family pagan hand fasting wedding ceremony, which is
Okay.
kind of crazy. So those are your three options: how I didn't pay for college,
Oh.
my trip to my past lives,
Okay.
or a pagan hand fasting family wedding.
Oh man. I mean, I feel like I'll just have to have you back on so I can hear
Yeah,
the other
exactly.
ones. Yeah.
I knew I had a feeling. I was like, no, I'm just gonna set him up. Yeah, to bring me back.
Let's do this is why I'm choosing the one that I'm choosing. This is a very nerdy response,
Yeah,
but I've been writing a lot lately. I've been working on a
yeah,
new book, and I like to have things going on in the background. Like I can't do silence,
yeah,
and music doesn't always work for me because I
yeah,
get too focused on the music.
yeah,
So sometimes I just like to turn on Netflix and just have something playing.
yeah.
And I'll tune it out. It's great, and then I can focus on what I'm writing. And
Sure.
lately, I've in the background, I've been having this Netflix series called World War II in Color. Road to Victory is what it's called. And it's
Okay.
just like 45 to an hour long episodes about certain things, but it's all this footage from the 40s,
Yeah,
from World War II that they've colorized. So it
yeah.
looks really cool. But I just watched it. This is like such a long winded way of
No, no, no,
picking
no.
why I picked
I'm
it.
here for it.
I just watched an episode that took place in northern Africa in the desert in this one specific battle, and Patton was the general who came in and ended up winning this particular battle. There's
Wow.
that famous story about Patton being in places in Europe and like experiencing that phenomenon where he's like, I was here before.
Yeah.
And it's like there's that like kind of that known thing where he was like a general like centuries before and he was remembering a past life. So I'm going to choose
In the past
for the
life.
story of how you got to your past life.
Yeah. Okay, please. This. You can thank Molly. She was the one who put that gem back in my head today. I was like, oh my god,
Perfect. I
right.
love it.
So this, there is a through line actually between that and the other story, the how I didn't pay for college
Okay,
story,
perfect.
that kind of can weave together both of those. So there's a whole other story that Molly and I like, that is like our meeting, our happenstance meeting in town was very like this very surreal moment, and we both were kind of at these like breaking points in both of our lives and careers, and when we met each other, it just kind of
Mm.
like opened a lot of doors for the both of us. And so I was playing Hotel Cafe. It's Monday Songwriter Showcase in
Yeah, yeah,
Hollywood,
yeah.
which is kind of just like my and Molly's home base here in town.
It's
Like
cool.
that, and it's such the room where so many of the greatest songwriters in town, and like freaking John Mayer on like a random night might show up to go
Yeah,
play
it's
songs. It's like
crazy.
it's such a crazy room, and it's so tiny and like intimate, and played a really good, just really what felt really good set on the night that I met Molly, and ended up kind of just connecting with folks who I think the set resonated with. And then Molly, and there's a whole prolonged piece to this, but we fell for each other and went
I
on some
love it.
dates
I
and
love it.
yada yada yada. And I had the ballsy move on my last day in town of that second trip out here, where I was working on the Rita Rita record, and we met up for like lunch or something, and she was going to drive me to the airport. And when she pulled up and I sat down, and I was like, okay, I have this like crazy ask, I have this crazy ask to put out, and I know we've only known each other for like not even a full week, but if I showed up at your door in my Honda CRV and booked us a full tour, would you go on the road with me? And she was like, right then and there, like, yeah, totally. and
Oh
so
my
and
gosh.
so within like a matter of 5 weeks, I kind of went back to Denver and just like hit the ground running, and like booked, I think, like 10 or 12 shows or something. Like we were playing, we were going to do a whole loop from Denver down through Kansas, through Texas,
Uh-huh.
New Mexico, and then get back to California and loop back all the way up through Portland and back up in Denver. Um, and I was just kind of baffled by the fact that
She was
she was
just so
just
down
down.
immediately.
And I just immediately, I was like, you fucking crazy woman. Like, okay, let's do this. And
I love
so
it.
so she flies out to Denver, and our first show is actually with that producer from Chicago.
Cool. Very
So
cool.
that was another like intersect, and because him and his partner at the time were also like a male female kind of folk duo. So there was like a good intersection that night. We've all played together and all very fun. And then we hit the road and we played Wichita, Kansas at this this random little beer store that was like very funny, and got way too wasted for the first night of tour. Molly was like, "Who is this dude? Like, can I rely on this dude for
I love it.
another
Quick side note: the
yeah.
first tour that my band went on, we played a show in man, I think it was our show we had in like Palm Desert, California, and it was like this dodgy little bar, but we just had so much fun, and we didn't give a shit because we were on the road. And that night, we literally in total we made $45. We were like, we did it, we made money. And literally on the way back to our hotel, we stopped at Del Taco. We spent all $45, and we just all ate Del Taco in silence in our hotel room because we were all so drunk from that night.
Oh my god,
that's so funny. Anyway,
it's so real though. I know there's such this like glory to tour, which is like even especially a self-book tour, you're on such an A B side of like I'm on the road, which sounds really cool, and then there's like the nights where it's awesome and it's like holy crap, we just played for like 300 people and made a bunch of new fans and sold all this merch and like played this beautiful venue. And then there's the other night where you're like, I just got wasted in this like local liquor store and like and nobody knows who I am, and like I'm kind of just walking out with like numb fingers in the cold, like why am I 8 hours from my house right now? But all that to say, like we kind of made it through that first night. We ended up in Texas to go play this show that like it was at the spot that Leon Bridges I think was notoriously like discovered at.
Oh cool.
We ended up getting horrible food poisoning there, and so that was also a moment of like Molly and I really getting to know each other. We were just
real quick.
We're posted up in bed, and like absolutely I've never been so depleted in my life of like every ounce of energy and like bodily autonomy. Like we just stood there like kind of in this like, this is kind of funny, right? Like like with no laughing, just like this is is there something good to be found here?
My god.
So we finally we ended up staying longer than we were supposed to recover, and then hit New Mexico, went and saw Meow Wolf for the first time. That was awesome. Cool. So these are all just kind of the setup to like what by the time we got to the West Coast, everything kind of just like colorized into the like I think what was cool about what we were doing. Those first few stops were just like, shit, we don't know each other, we're learning about one another on the road, we're playing these kind of weird crappy venues, we're recovering from horrible food poisoning, like the road is kind of giving us a beating right now. And then by the time we got to California, we had a really great run of little shows there. I think we played Hotel, and we played I don't even know, just like a couple. There was like a spin-off of shows. We went to San Francisco, played a couple good dates. We did a bunch of stuff with So Far Sounds. So
for sure, it's great. It's great.
And for those who don't know, go check out So Far Sounds for cool.
It's how we met.
Like cool, intimate songwriter, like just show experiences and random spots, and they really propped us up that trip. They got us playing some really great rooms and really great crowds, and pulled us out to some awesome events. And so we basically, we finished up in San Francisco. We did like 3 shows there, and our next spot was to go into Portland, and which I'd never been. I was just so stoked to like go. I'm a huge Fred Armisen fan, and like Portland, like mythical. Like what is it really like there? And so to kind of round shit back to how I didn't pay for college. So one of the seminal playwrights of like my young experience, and also of like just my mom's theater company, is this man Mark Aceto, and he's this author and playwright, and he's like had his Broadway premiere with Allegiance on Broadway, which is all about internment camps in the US. And it was just I've learned so much from the dude. Every time I go to New York, I stay with him and his husband, and they are just like artists by every
I love it.
sense of the word, and such curious and questioning people. And the first time I met him was for this show called How I Paid for College, based on a book of his. And the actor, and it was a one-man show. The actor, and it then went to Alex Brightman, who was a near and dear friend and family friend. Soon went on to premiere Andrew Lloyd Webber's Ned Schneebly in School of Rock, the musical.
Yeah.
And he was Beetlejuice and the Beetlejuice premiere on Broadway. So that was like just very like big piece of my like, you know, or like middle school years, was like meeting this like blossoming actor, and Mark being this like vibrantly curious writer and individual. And they've kind of become this backbone of a lot of things. And so Mark and Floyd, his husband, before they lived in New York, and that was a place that I would go and visit them, they kind of built this whole world and this community in Portland. And they had like that's where he wrote a lot of his first pieces. And I think he was like writing for a newspaper, something. There's a whole, you know, world and experience to his time in Portland that I still don't really know too much about. All that to be said is that we're driving to Portland, and we're trying to figure out how do we stay and, you know, be here and for a prolonged experience, not just these few shows, but we both knew like we had time off. We wanted to just hang in Portland for as long as we could. And so I text Mark, and I'm like, we're headed to Portland. We're looking for a place to stay. Do you know anybody? I know this is your old stomping grounds. And he's like, oh boy, do I, you know, like this is the most interesting person I know. And he just texts me, and this is like, you like, for all of those out, we're just like, Mark Aceto, again, like one of the zaniest, most like unique people I've ever met in my entire life. And so for him to tell me like, this is the most interesting person I know, like go text or call them or whatever, I was like, what could that even mean, Mark? Like, coming from you, I'm like, I don't know what to expect. Like your most interesting person is like tenfold what anybody I've ever met, you know. And so I text this woman. Her name is Goody Cable, and she is she's a hallmark element of Portland kind of like culture. She's been there with her family for a long time. She owns this famous coffee shop in town called the Rimsky-Korsakov coffee house, based off and every table in the coffee house is based off of a different classical composer.
Oh wow.
And she also owns like this hotel in town that's like every room is based off of the collective works of a certain author. So there's like no Wi-Fi, like no, it's like just like you go into this hotel and each room's like, okay, here's every Dr. Seuss book, you know, ever written, or every Charles Dickens novel, like just sitting in a room.
That's so badass.
Yeah, so she's just like this ridiculous, like, you know, like just well-lived life and like woman of culture and woman. It seems just like has provided such space and community for like all of the wackiest, you know, Portland things you could probably think of. And so all of this to say, I text her. She's immediately like, any friend of Mark's is a friend.
I love it.
And she's like, come on over. Here's my address. She sends a couple little things of like, you know, there's a hill at the top when you get there. You know, go past the hill and you'll see the back lot of the house. And I was like, the house, okay, what? And like, so I'm slowly coming to like, this is not just like, we're not just headed to some apartments in town. I'm like, this is a plot of land we're heading toward. And so Molly like treks through. I've been doing a ton of the driving, I think, in the California run, and so by the time Molly was like, I got the Portland drive, like you get some rest. And so I remember falling asleep in the car and like waking up to like the misty green like Oregon, you know, like scenery. And you know, within you know several hours of us kind of entering into Oregon, we know we're getting close. We're hitting up Goody. And she says she'll like be at the house when we arrive. It's the only time actually in the whole trip of us seeing her and like actually meeting this woman. So we get to like within a couple miles of Portland, and we pass the sign that says you are entering Portland, Oregon. Like it's once we see that sign, we immediately turn right into this neighborhood. And there's these 4 brand new developments, like 4 brand new houses, maybe like, you know, built within the past 4 or 5 years or so. And at the back of these 4 brand new houses is this big kind of construction gated like warning sign that basically just says like, do not enter. This is property of the state. Like, do not go any further past this. And so we drive past that sign.
Naturally, yeah.
We go past the warning, do not enter sign. down this long and windy dirt path, and it's like, coming where we were just such proper suburbia, and then all of a sudden it's like the woods kind of just like
Mm-hmm.
engulf and swallow the car. And we drive up to this old farmhouse, and there is gardens galore surrounding. There's like these tiny little sheds off to the distance. It's like out of some like Tim Burton film, and those level of like glass jars and weird like collected things just sitting all over. And Goody's just this like very unassuming older woman in the front gardening in her like gardening boots and gloves. And yeah, we show up and she just gives us the lay of the land. She's like, this is my family's house. We've had this house for over 100 years. It's passed through the family. The only reason we still keep it is because it's like my excuse to get all my grandchildren together every year here at the house. There is what do you call it? A groundskeeper, like somebody on the property who tends to tends to the land. And because they had like even in this like outside of it was the suburban area, like they had at least an acre or two or something that we still didn't like go expand really upon. And she takes us inside, and once we're inside, it's just like it's like a history museum of their family. There's just black and white photos everywhere, and like surrounding every nook and cranny. And this is a big house. Like we're talking like wild, like 10 bedrooms. Like she had like a full music room with like this full grand piano and hand percussion. And she told us like, I spent years hosting these like living room classical shows where like classical musicians would come and perform for the neighborhood in my living room.
That is so fucking cool.
Yeah, and the house just it, like reacts to every step. It's one of those like creaky, old, very much like a living entity. Like the house has just like almost breathing, there with us, and had this collective energy to it. And so, after giving us all of the rundown of here's where you should stay, or you can stay in any of these 10 rooms, I don't care, nobody's going to be here. And we asked at one point too, like, what can we do some laundry? She's like, well, you could if you're brave enough. And we're like, what does that mean? And you're like, well, the laundry room is downstairs in the basement, like only go down there if you're not squeamish. And we were like, okay.
You're okay.
All right, sure. And so she leaves, and Molly and I kind of just sit outside in this front yard on this gorgeous Oregon day, having come from like, the rest of this stressful run. It was really like the first proper decompression time of the whole trip. Like we didn't have a show until the next day, and let ourselves just kind of exist there. We went and played the show, I think, the next day, and like let ourselves explore town. And we had the goodies okay to be there for like, however long we wanted, 5, 6, 7 days.
That's cool.
So cool about it. So, thank goodness for her and for giving us this place to be. But I think it was on like the second or third day that we were there that we kind of just start to allow ourselves like to explore the property.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like something out of a children's book, or like I said, like it was a movie set by all accounts, of like just like how intricate and detailed every corner was. And and also she had us do some gardening help for her the first day, so I was like, I know that there's more land back there, like let's just go peruse. And so Molly and I, after kind of going around the land, we find ourselves in this back nook and cranny somewhere that's like this tucked away spot of the yard. And out of nowhere, we're like, oh my God, that's a tree house, a fully formed, and not just like your like platform on, like there's beds in there, and there's like, like little windows and separate levels to this, like it's an intricate tree house.
Oh my God.
And so we climb up into it, and I'm like, let's go see what's up with this treehouse. And that was really the first moment where it started to like shake Molly and I a little bit. As we were sitting there in this, and I think the term of like so many people of this generation, like I'm a spiritual person. I was raised in different, like my mom's Jewish, my dad's Christian. There's like a whole religious back end to all of this. So as far as my experience with like spirits and otherworldly feelings and like that. Like it was something I up until that point had not even given the focus or the attention that maybe like was I was aware that I could sense or feel or even just like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
take witness to.
Oh my
and
God.
and so we're in this treehouse, and Molly and I just kind of everything goes so silent, and we just kind of look at each other and we're like, we've been here before. Like, why have we both been here before? Like, we kind of are just like within moments of like, why is this so familiar? And we're kind of just blown away. Like, I'm getting chills even just thinking about it
Oh
now.
my God.
Like we're just so mutually overtaken, and to the point of us both expressing it to one another of like, this is familiar. Like, yeah, this is really familiar. Like, why does it feel like we've been here before? I'm like, I think we might have. Like, I don't know what it is, but like, I really feel like I know this place, whether it be from a dream or from, a past life, or even just like this like weird deja vu. Like, something's weird in about this.
Oh
And
wow.
so, we're kind of spooked, to be honest.
Yeah,
Like,
for sure.
you're like, what is this? Like, we got to get out of here. Like, let's go back to the house. Let's go back to the yard. I think we're okay. Like, we're very sober right now. There's nothing twisting my leg except me, in my own
Oh
like
my gosh, yeah.
intuition, I guess, and both of our collective intuition. And so we go sit down, and there's, next to the music room, we go inside and make some food, like, or maybe this is just hunger striking. Maybe I'm just going crazy
Yeah.
right we eat a sandwich or something, and then Molly goes to play this upright piano, or not upright, sorry, the full grand piano that's
Yeah,
in
yeah,
the
yeah.
room. And attached to the side of the music room is this little side porch with a couple seats out there. Um, and I just let myself sit there and
Hmm.
stare off into the yard and stare off into the land. And Molly was just kind of freely playing the piano in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And there it came again. And I was just sitting in this chair, and like my vision started to kind of mold over a little bit. Like, I started seeing the yard in like these waves in a way.
Oh
And
man.
like I was struck with this feeling of like, I'm not the only one here right now, or like something about this is so eerily familiar. It's trying to show me something. Like, obviously, I'm not here to put the pin onto like what it was I was experiencing necessarily,
Totally. Because I don't
but
know that it was even important to.
yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, it
Yeah, I
wasn't
love
important.
that.
It was more just like I was so taken by this days, both of Molly's piano playing and of the yard and of everything we just experienced in the treehouse, and also coming to the like kind of culmination of these weeks on tour and kind of just taking this risk in my life and jumping into something with Molly, and it kind of being so rewarding, and all of that hitting, but also like just feeling the house so aggressively, like feeling
Mm-hmm.
the history and like, whatever the like non-palpable, like, like extra beyond, like that whole idea of like, oh, when you think you see something, like that's
Yeah.
actually, a spirit revealing it or whatever. Like, for what, like, it put all of those first things into question of like, man, like, do I have some, contemplation to do around what I perceive, spirits or ghosts or past lives or
I
anything. And like,
love
it
it.
it put this like supernatural questioning into me for the first time, in my like young adult body, to be like, I've never felt anything like this before, and I have to just rely on this intuition being trusted, that
Mm-hmm.
like, even if I don't know what it is, I know I'm feeling and sensing and aware to some presence that is not directly in front of me.
Yeah.
But it's so clear, it was so like almost as if I could see it. And the fact that Molly was there mirroring that and also having a very similar thing. And after she, I kind of walked it back inside, equally as spooked once again. And Molly and I are walking around like, just, this is all way too weird. Like, we've been here 3 days. This house feels like it's telling us something, or like we are literally just audience members to this crazy ecosystem that we have just arrived on. Um, and we kind of at around this point are like, maybe it's time to go. Maybe it's time
Mm-hmm.
to go home. Like I think maybe our time is kind of reaching an end here. Um, and the groundskeeper, God bless him, like he kind of just was in and out of the house every once in a while. So there
Mm-hmm.
was this like back end to like, are we hearing somebody? Oh no,
Yeah. Oh, that's just, yeah, got it.
he's just like watching TV. It's totally cool. But I know Molly, in addition to all of this extra, feeling, was like, okay, I just need to get out of here. And the moment that it sold us was when we were finally like, oh well, let's go do our laundry. Let's see if we're not
Oh,
squeaming for
jeez.
what Goody told us. And we pull all our laundry into these baskets, and we open this door to the basement, and we go down, and kind of like, the scene in Home Alone where he's like terrified of the furnace, and it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
his imagination playing tricks on him. Like I was very much anticipating that kind of thing of like, I
Okay.
know my mind is already alive to all of these things, and like, why am I feeling all this? Maybe going into the basement isn't gonna make it any better, but at least at least we'll get some clean clothes out of it, or I don't know, whatever my thinking was. And we go down there, and it's like an antique store, run by ghosts. It like literally felt like there was no light we could find anywhere. We just like, as soon as we were down there, we both just got these like such vivid chills of like,
Yeah.
we got all the way to the laundry machine, and like found the detergent. Everything was there for us to do it, but we were just like, nope, and like just turned around, and we're like, we're gonna go right back up. Like and we packed our bags, the next morning, and we were out of there. And to this day, I haven't heard anything from Mark, or even from Goody, but we've reached out several other times, and she's just disappeared into like, I don't I
Oh, no
like
way.
I've messaged her several times over the years and never gotten a response back. I'm hoping she's okay. It was like, we only
Yeah,
saw
for
her that
sure.
one time that we were there, and I've never heard anything from Mark or Floyd, given that they were just such close friends. But by the time we left and kind of drove back down that long engulfing driveway past the sign that says, do not enter, it was kind of like it sealed itself off. Like that's what the feeling was. Is
Oh,
like, I
man.
don't know if we're ever gonna go back there or end up. And Molly so much had this feeling while we were there of like, I think this is where the milk record needs to be made, and like we should bring everybody back here, and like the house is like got this thing that like maybe would translate into the record. But obviously none of that kind of came to fruition. But that is the feeling I kind of had of driving back onto the road and kind of exiting that driveway. It was like, nope, those trees just zipped themselves back up,
Oh my
and I was
gosh.
to never hear anything else of it ever again. And so that was my tour that led me to my past life, what I think to be my past life, at least.
Yeah.
Because
Oh
that was the
my
most.
gosh, that's incredible.
Yeah, and to this day, it's open. I know I need to actually legitimize it, and I know there's like past life regression thing you can do, or like even just to try to understand visions or things. And that's a piece of like, I'm such a vivid dreamer, so I've always
Mm,
grown up with that idea of like, are pieces of my dreams these or like how do they tie into these manifestations of real life versus
yeah.
past or certain thing. And like, because I'm also somebody who dreams repeated things over and over again.
Oh,
Like I
interesting.
come back to the same homes and the same locations and the same people and the same situations, and it's like, you know it just opened up the floodgates to at
Yeah,
least
I bet. I
be
bet.
like being able to with more confidence say like, I'm not the only one here, like,
Mm-hmm.
and two, like, like there is a clarity and a transparency to like a spiritual realm of some sort,
For
of like
sure.
me taking witness to something. Even if back to that other conversation of like, we are the vessel for the music, like in many ways
Mm-hmm.
that's like the clearest thing I can tie into, is like that spirit taking hold, and you kind of capturing that moment for those like most truth provoking, or like on provoking moments of playing. And and it just opened me up to all of that, to say like, I've never had such a candid and straightforward experience of something I didn't understand like that, but felt so intimately, and also
Yeah.
shared with somebody who was still very much a
Yeah,
stranger to
that's
me.
so wild.
Yeah.
Like, that's so wild.
Yeah. So, we drove home through a snowstorm. We got stuck in multiple nights of blizzards. Like, it was such a crazy trying to get back from all of that. But I remember like pulling back up into my mom's Denver, home, and just being like just melting into a puddle on the couch, just being like, I can't believe we just like survived and made it through all of it. My first tour, it was like the first time of like really proving that one, we could do that, and two, that like it could be successful as far as like the shows were concerned. But
for sure.
But yeah, there was such like that last 3 or 4 days was just like kind of running from this mystical, spiritual element that neither of us could put our finger on, and then trekking through like the most ridiculous snowstorm of my life and getting stuck in the middle of like buttfuck nowhere in Wyoming. And it was just like all absurd. And then ending up back at home being like, okay, I guess we're fine. Like, I guess I can take a beat now and like process all of that. Yeah. But I clearly still am processing all of that, because it's just gnarly. It's so gnarly.
Man, that is so wild. I love every ounce of that, though. I'm so into that. Okay, and I would imagine that you had never had that experience before, and you haven't had it since.
No, nothing like that ever again. Like,
cool.
That was very particular to that house and that home, and to Goody. Like, she is by all means like this like mythical creature in my memory now. I'm like,
yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Like,
oh my god, what
an incredible story.
Oh, I'm so glad you like made space for it, and thank
absolutely
you
man, that's like
care.
More than anything I ever could have hoped for. It's so great. It's so great.
I'm so glad.
Hell yeah, man, dude, this was so fun. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, of course. Man, I hope we can do another one of these, or even just connect real soon. And
dude, absolutely. Man, I'm gonna think about that for the rest of today at least. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Anything you want me to point people towards? In particular,
Rita Rita is playing Breaking Sound Showcase at Adults Only.
Okay.
February 16th.
Perfect.
So that's like the next Rita Rita thing. I'm trying to put together like a big band thing, like a big jam band kind of thing.
It's called the Breaking Sounds.
The Breaking Sound is the name. It's a production company.
Breaking Sound, got
Breaking Sound, the Breaking Sound Showcase, and
Perfect.
It's at Adults Only. Besides that, I've talked about the things. I got a new Eli Pafumi record that will slowly be trickling out and releasing over the next few months, and Rita Rita's record, Safta's Garden, Safta's grandmother in Hebrew. So Savta. Safta's Garden was still our debut. I'm still very proud of.
I love that.
Still play those tunes, so feel free to go check those out. And then other than that, made this record with Molly. They're releasing it under the band Milk, so that'll be coming out soon. And
dude, thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks,
it was so great to chat and connect, and like, yeah, this was awesome, and that story was incredible. And yeah, I'll point people towards all of the things you got going on, and I'll obviously keep my ear to the ground and wait for them too.
Thank you so much. It was great talking to you, Trey. Until the next one.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, see you. Have a good week, bud. I'll talk to you later.
You too.
All right, see you, bud. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Thank you so much, Eli, for sharing such an incredible story. I genuinely loved every second of it. And Eli's just such a great guy. I could have talked to him for hours. If you want to follow Eli, his album Safta's Garden by his band Rita Rita is available now. If you want to follow them on Instagram, there is at Rita Rita Music. As we mentioned, Eli will be releasing a solo record this year under his name, so if you want to follow along on Instagram, it's just at Eli Pafumi. I will have links in the show notes here. And then if you want to check out his other project, the band Milk, they will be releasing their album this year as well. So many exciting things. If you want some extra time with Eli, we talk about so much. Like I said, I could talk to Eli for hours. He's just such an interesting, cool guy. Patreon.com/tellmeyours. Lots of great extra conversation there. We talk about the Beatles. We talk about manifestation. We talk about all kinds of stuff. Patreon.com/tellmeyours. Bonus content with Eli. And then if you want to follow us, we are just Twitter and Instagram at TellMeYoursPod. As always, please remember to like our podcast. Please remember to subscribe to our podcast. Leave us a comment. Let us know Share your favorite story. Anything you can do, tell your friends. We're here. I love doing this. I want to keep doing this. So anything you can do that helps. And then don't forget, Tell Me Yours podcast listeners also are going to get an exclusive 20% discount if you go to blackrosewriting.com and you buy my book Beneath the Surface and use the promo code Tell Me Yours. My publisher gave me that discount to use for the podcast listeners, so take advantage of it. Thank you all again so much for listening, and until next week, be kind to each other, and we'll talk soon.